Hello, people of my page. Welcome. This video today is going to start a multiple video series on critical race theory. This is concerning the new executive order that Biden just rescinded of the Trump administration. But before we get into that, I want to encourage you to hit the like button and share if you feel that this information is relevant and could help anyone that you know that might be an educator, anyone that you know that is employed, anyone that you know has small children in school, because believe it or not, this is going to come to a workplace or school near you. If it isn't already, it's already started invading some of our college campuses here. So before I address what critical race theory is, I feel like I need to explain to you what it is and when it started. So on my Facebook, I shared why the left can be violent and hypocrites and you cannot. Herbert Marcuse's Repressive Tolerance, 1965 for Dummies. Now, Herbert Marcuse was a sociologist who wrote an essay, a 12-point summary of the essay, Repressive Tolerance. He is a philosopher and sociologist, teacher and mentor of Angela Davis, one of the founders of the modern anti-racism movement. Okay, so just to give you a little backstory here, we're talking 1965, kind of at the height of the Vietnam War. If any of you have paid attention at all to history, you'll know that there was the flower power, hippie generation protesting against the Vietnam War. This is when it started, okay? It was being taught in select campuses across the United States. And this is an indoctrination, okay? So one of the things I want to clarify is that when I say the left, I am not talking about Democrats. I am talking about a cult-like ideology that has been taught in schools, on college campuses for a few decades now. The problem is that generation in the 60s that bought into this, they in turn had children that they indoctrinated into this, and then in turn went to college, and so on and so forth. And we are now, in the current state of affairs, seeing this play out in our news media organizations, movies, you name it, it's there. So let's go over some of these rules that they have. So number one, only we the left can define the word tolerance. Number two, right-wing ideas and movements must be stopped with violence. Left-wing ideas and movements must be tolerated, even with violence. Good example of that is what has been and is currently still going on in Portland, Oregon. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I would highly urge you to go on either YouTube or Twitter and follow Andy No. He has been posting videos of the violence that's still to this day going on inside of Portland, primarily by members of Antifa, anti-fascist, which I find hilarious because the very thing that they claim to be against is the very thing that they are doing, shutting up any voices of dissent that don't subscribe to their repressive intolerance or ideology. Number three, tolerance should only be extended to the truth. Okay, so question I have for you there, who determines the truth? You know, they always told us growing up that there's three sides to every truth. There's one side and the other side, and then there's actually what happened. So I want you to think about who defines or determines what truth is. Only leftism is true, and anything other than leftism is not. Therefore, tolerance is only extended to leftism. So if you have an opinion or an idea different than theirs, you're wrong, they're right, bend the knee. Number six, anyone who disagrees with this must have been indoctrinated. To the extent that the majority of people disagree, that must mean that the majority of people are indoctrinated. So you see what that right there? Anybody that has a foundation or has read anything about psychology knows that this is projection. It's a twisting of words. So they're going to say, oh no, we haven't been indoctrinated, that's you. And one of the ways that they do that is to label anyone who considers themselves a patriot. So a patriot being someone who has fought to preserve the Declaration of Independence and the rights and freedoms that that document bestows upon all humans. 7, since most people are indoctrinated, leftists must break the indoctrination so that they can finally grasp the truth of leftism and be on the right side of history. Well, we're seeing this play out right now in our current news media. People on CNN, MSNBC, Katie Couric, calling for all Trump supporters to be re-educated or cleansed of their beliefs. Now, I can't even begin to tell you how dangerous this language is. Anyone that has studied World War II and Hitler knows that this is the very language that they used to murder millions of Jews. Millions, okay? Because if you can use language to dehumanize domestic terrorists, they're calling all Trump supporters, not the idiots that stormed the Capitol, because those were idiots. But all of the people that were there are not or were not participating. Some were just there to hear their president speak, okay? But when you start using language like domestic terrorism and clumping an entire group of individuals and shaming and blaming them for the atrocities that a small group of people committed, you see where that gets problematic? That's how the Germans did with the Jews. They dehumanized an entire group of people, made them less than human. And when you don't view your opponent as even human, the atrocities that you can commit against that person, let me just tell you, I'm listening to the Gulag Archipelago right now, written by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and I can't even listen to it for extended periods of time because the horrors and the torture that human beings, regular humans, individuals who subscribe to this ideology, which is fascist, the things that they did, I can't even wrap my head around as a human being. Number 8, to break the indoctrination, leftists must promote left-wing thought and suppress right-wing thought by taking over institutions, news media, childhood education, colleges, academia, films, government, business, nonprofits, etc. The ends justify the means. Well, we're currently seeing this right now for the calls to cancel Fox News, Newsmax, or the OAN network, okay? So they want to silence the voice of their opponents, okay? Or AOC calling for the resignation of Ted Cruz and Senator Hawley. Anybody that rejects the current ideology that they're trying to promote is an enemy of the state. This is dangerous thinking, ladies and gentlemen. Number 9, promoting left-wing thought is accomplished by changing established universes of meaning, which means they're changing the meaning of words, okay? And actively presenting information slanted in the opposite direction. Examples: propaganda, political correctness, deliberately omitting data like crime and race statistics from journalism and the news, quietly changing the meaning of words like racism from treating every individual as a human being equally without looking at their race to prejudice plus power, using equivocation fallacies and Mott and Bailey fallacies in arguments. Number 10, suppressing right-wing and centrist moderate thought is accomplished by withdrawing the freedom of speech, press, assembly for anyone who disagrees with leftists on race, gender, religion, public services, police, social security, healthcare, hiring policy, technology, education, guns. Examples: deplatforming, socially shunning, canceling, firing, doxing, and even threatening with violence. We are seeing this again on social media, banning the president, okay? You may not like Trump, but that is suppressing a voice. Not to mention on Twitter, it wasn't just Trump that was purged. Any conservative voice that speaks out against this ideology is up for cancellation. That is basically what this is saying. If necessary to withdraw these freedoms, so they're coming after your First Amendment, okay? This is why freedom of speech is so important. Freedom of speech doesn't cover things that you agree with. This is what people don't seem to understand. Freedom of speech protects speech that you don't agree with, okay? And when we start making laws in regards to censoring speech or labeling hate speech or anything like that, because we already have laws. Let me clear this up, because I know somebody's going to come out and say, but what about yelling fire in a theater? We have laws to cover that already. We also have laws against people who incite violence, which means people that stand up and demand that other people be hurt. You know, like some of the Democrats like Maxine Waters and AOC have said. Literally, they've said that. Get in their face. You tell them they're not welcome here. Okay, so this is the ideology. Last one, 12. Leftists who use revolutionary violence are not to be condemned by any leftists. They should always be excused by citing the truth in history promoted by leftists. Okay, so look at what happened last summer. For any of you that were really paying attention, and if you weren't really paying attention, I can recommend that maybe you go revisit, because while most of the protests of the BLM movement were peaceful, there were quite a few that were not. And news media organizations like CNN is standing fire raging in the background, mostly peaceful protests, trying to brainwash you or gaslight you, like, don't believe your eyes, don't believe what you see, only believe what we tell you. This is a bending of reality, okay? And this is why I say you have to guard your heart and guard your minds. And if you see something and you have any questions, pick up that lovely little computer that we all have in our hands and do your research. Because right now, like I said in my last video, we are not in a race war. We are in a cultural war. This is a cultural fight. They control the culture. They control the media. They control the news organizations. And if you are getting your news from just these places, you are not getting the full story, okay? One of the things that I've done over the last year is pull resources from different areas and then use my critical thinking skills, you know, that big, beautiful brain that sits on top of your shoulders, to discern what's really going on. And I have a hypocrisy meter like nobody's business. And I am appalled at the level of hypocrisy in the things that people are willing to just accept as truth. So you need to guard yourself from this, because we are in a culture war. Make no mistake. So that's just a little bit. So now I want to address or touch on the executive order that Biden rescinded, that Trump put into place. So this is another brief explanation as to what critical race theory is. This is an article written by a gentleman by the name of Andrew Sullivan. Okay, Biden's culture war aggression. So I just want to kind of highlight this few paragraphs here. So some words that you're going to hear a lot of: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm going to touch in my next video what those words actually mean, but this is going to tell you what they really, what they really mean. So the paradox, of course, is that to achieve equity, now keep in mind, we already have equality of opportunity. And equality of opportunity basically means that every person born in the United States, if they're willing to work hard and, basically, if they're a creator, are you a creator or a destroyer? So if you're willing to work hard and apply yourself, that you can pretty much go as far as you want. Good examples of this are Barack Obama, Beyonce, Oprah Winfrey. If you know her story, that's equality of opportunity. They took advantage of every single opportunity that came their way. They didn't let anybody tell them no. Okay? That's equality of opportunity. Equity, what they're really talking about is equality of outcome. The best way that I can describe this to you is I think every single one of us, myself included, have had one of those friends or a family member. We call them the constant moocher. They're always sleeping on your couch or bumming some money from you. They're not going anywhere, and they always have excuses as to why they can't succeed. We're never going to have equality of opportunity or quality of outcome, because you know as well as I do, some people just work harder than others. So, is that to achieve equity, you have to first take away equality for individuals who are born in the wrong identity group. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is all about identity politics. It's not about rights of individuals. It's about, are you Black? Are you white? Are you gay? Are you straight? Are you trans? The left loves labels. They want to label everything. And they call that intersectionality, which in reality is just oppression Olympics. Where do you fit on the oppression hierarchy? So guard your minds and heart against that, because it might sound nice and they can paint it with some pretty words, but essentially that's exactly what it is. Equity means treating individuals unequally so that groups are equal, okay? Just because it sounds good doesn't mean it does good. So how do we know when equity has been achieved? That's a very good question. It seems that the only definition of equity that works is that all groups are represented in federal policies in proportion to their share of the population. Or more so, since equity can also require overrepresentation of these groups to make up for the past, the fact that an individual born, say in the early 21st century, has no personal or moral connection to slavery or segregation, au contraire, is irrelevant. She must pay for the past sins of her race. This is blood guilt, ladies and gentlemen. I encourage you to look up Mao, M-A-O, okay, and what he did in his cultural cleansing over in Asia. Blood guilt. So you are guilty for the sins of the past. This is dangerous and has led to millions upon millions of people being slaughtered. Biden is therefore enforcing the Ibram X. Kendi view that the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. Does that make any sense to you? Can you fight hate with hate? Can you change someone's mind through hate? And he's enforcing it all across the entire federal government and any institution the federal government funds. To show he's serious, he's appointed Susan Rice to enforce equity in a whole of government approach. America is no longer about individual freedom. It's about identity group power and its constant management by the government. Okay, so this also addresses the LGBTQ queer theory. Okay, so reality, according to science, there are only two sexes, male and female. But where the left likes to get you is to say that there is no difference and it's a social construct. It's not. You're either born XX or XY. Then there's gender or gender expression. This is how you choose to live your life, okay? So these are very two opposite things. So the danger of that policy that he put in place has basically young girls who compete in sports. There's a reason that we've separated sports between males and females. There is a fundamental biological difference between men and women. Are they equal in capabilities and mentalities? Yes. Equal in strength? No. Okay, testosterone is the god of hormones. Okay, it is. It is the superior one. It does all kinds of things to a young man's body that estrogen does not, okay? Estrogen, as we get older and stop producing it, actually helps, weaken the bones. Testosterone continues to produce throughout a young male's life into his older years and makes his bones more resilient and stronger, his muscles denser, so on and so forth. Now, I don't have a problem with transgendered females performing in sports, but the problem with this rescinding and this executive order is that it doesn't specify specifics. Okay, so now if you're a young male and you want to identify as a female, you can participate in female sports and you are not required to be on hormone therapy. Okay, this is a problem because if you have testosterone surging for, you're still a male. You're not even transitioning. This doesn't cover any specifics, not to mention the dangerous doors that it opens up for people with bad intentions all over the world. Do we live in a bubble? There are bad people out there that mean harm to women. And this whole executive order opens the door for all kinds of things to happen. But nobody thought this through. So again, that's just a brief explanation to give you a general idea of what critical theory, critical race theory, and the terminology that they're going to use to try to get you on board, that you need to guard yourself against, because equity doesn't mean what most normal people think it means. And it sounds like a great idea, but fundamentally it's socialism, okay? Take from the rich and equally distribute the wealth. I urge you to do some research on socialism, especially Venezuela would be the most recent example. It leads to government enforced slavery, poverty at levels that the United States has never seen, and then a culmination of wealth in a very small group of people. Okay, so these are things that we need to think about. These are the things that this video series is going to cover. Like I said, if you have small children in schools, this is a civil rights violation. Okay, and I'll go more into that in the next video, because I'm actually going to bring up the U.S. Department of Education's website, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1965, so that you have a general idea of how illegal critical race theory is by what it actually is trying to accomplish. Until next time, my friends, remember, hypocrisy is everywhere. Speak truth to lies. Thank you and have a great day.